Hello and welcome to Quietly Confident Introvert podcast. It's so exciting to be bringing you another great episode of this wonderful, wonderful podcast. And I say wonderful because I love my subscribers, I love the listeners, and I love those who download. And I know a lot of you are doing just that because recently, Quietly Confident Introvert was ranked as top 15, but number six, feed sport. So basically, it's a podcast that I know that you're listening to. But what's the podcast all about? Well, Quietly Confident Introvert podcast is designed to empower introverted women in business and leadership to harness their strengths, to develop quiet confidence, and to go after those audacious ambitions. My name is Patience Ogunbona, executive business and leadership coach, and also a speaker and trainer. And as you well know, my passion is all about making sure that my clients can live their lives in such a way that they move around with great confidence and they also have clarity to go after the things that they desire. And as far as organizations go, I collaborate with organizations who want to create diverse teams, support introverted women or women in general, and create that effective leadership pipeline. And today, our topic is really aligned with that in so many ways because we'll be talking about the three purposeful ways women rise up to lead unapologetically. And I'm sure you would want to take notes for this one. Why? Because today I have a very special guest. And I say special because I've been following and watching her. And really, she's been inspiring me. She wouldn't have expected me to sing her praises like this, but I'm doing just that because, you have all this, your girl crush. So I am one of those people who I wouldn't say that I'm the kind of person who would dance easily. And I've said that in the previous podcast. So if you haven't listened, go listen. I'm not really a party person. But really, when I see this lady come on screen, she makes me want to move my body. She makes me wish. They say, oh, don't wish you were like somebody else. No, but I do wish I was like her. So let me tell you about my guest today. My guest today is someone who embodies all these things I have said perfectly. She embodies that unapologetic leadership, deep empowerment, and rising from the inside. And my guest today is Veronica Safua Owusu. So if I haven't pronounced it correctly, she will correct me when she comes on board. She's a transformational teacher, soul purpose mentor, and author of Rise Up, Gold Dust Queen. It's a sacred invitation to heal your relationship with the feminine. And again, we know that in the workplace, there's a lot of energy that goes towards a lot of masculine energy. And sometimes feminine energy is treated as lacking confidence, as weak. But today we want to change that, or with this episode. And we'll be diving and talking about those three purposeful ways to do it. So, Veronica is the founder of V Power Coaching and president at Educational Communities Worldwide. She's a best selling author of her book, which I have mentioned. She's a deep dive executive coach for global leaders and an online business growth strategist. She has various awards to her name, one of which is the Excellence in Impactful Transformation and Leadership Innovation. And her motto in life is what the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. So without wasting time and listening just to me, I would invite Veronica on to join us today. Hi, Veronica.
Hi, Patience. You said it wonderfully. Veronica Safua Owusu. Well done.
Great,
It was
great.
perfect.
I think when I think of you, I think of sunshine. I don't know. And you're wearing nice yellow colors today and bright colors. I
It's
just
one of
think
my
of you as
favorite
sunshine.
colors.
But also gold. The,
Hmm.
the title of your book, Gold Dust. And again,
Yes.
whether you planned it or not, I can see gold
Mm.
sparkling all over you from what you're wearing, which is great.
Uh,
So, so
there's
welcome.
something to it.
Welcome, and we will be looking
Thank
forward
you.
for this episode for you to, sprinkle all your gold dust into the audience as they listen, maybe on their way to work or as they watch on YouTube or even Spotify. We know that Spotify does videos. So the first question I really want us to dive into is your book, Rise Up Gold Dust, is such a poetic and powerful title. What inspired the name? And who is the Gold Dust Queen, really?
Oh boy. So yeah, just that you see the cover, it's Rise Up Gold Dust Queen, and it shares the 50 golden nuggets of wisdom on how to reignite your spark and rebuild yourself after things go wrong in life.
Mm,
Specifically in this case, your relationships like divorce, breakups, because that was my story and my breaking point from which I had to rise. So you ask about the rise of gold dust queen. Why the gold dust? You know what, Patience? Some time ago, somebody said, Veronica, what's all this gold dust? Is it, and this is we as Africans, what we call the juju.
yes, 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 yes.
Why is
I
it
know that.
you blow those, particles on your face? And what happens? Like, what's all this gold dust about? And
Yeah, all that
when
Hollywood
we,
stuff.
we laughed about it, of course, he was just joking. But the gold dust is a very symbolic part of my life. And why gold? Why not platinum? Why not titanium? Why not something else? Why gold? First of all, it's a representation of where I come from. Ghana, which used to be called the Gold Coast, but it's something, gold is something that is true to my heritage from the Ashanti tribe, and it's something that represents my culture and where I'm from. But the meaning for gold dust is much deeper.
Hmm.
It comes from what I call, or what is known as, the supernova.
Hmm.
The supernova is, as we know, a galactic event, is a universal galactic event of the death of a star.
Hmm.
Now, when this supernova happens, the explosion, the heat, the intensity is so it's so intense, it's so hot, it's so fiery that new stars are given birth to from a supernova, that new planets are created from a supernova, that the fusion from the intense heat of elements that come together from this immense, unimaginable heat is gold.
Hmm.
So, gold is created from a supernova. And that is why the gold dust queen is one that has gone through that explosion, that fire,
Hmm.
those fires that we have in life. It could be a loss, it could be a career loss, it could be a divorce, it could be a breakup, it could be a traumatic experience that just dimmed your light fully. And
Hmm.
that fire is not there to burn us
Hmm.
and bring us fully to the ashes. It's there for us to rise and create and be refined into gold. Because we
Hmm.
know diamond is created through pressure and gold is created and refined through fire. So
Hmm.
Gold's Queen is the one that has been through the fire, simply speaking, and can
Wow.
now reignite that spark because now she shines with a new light. Now she can rebuild her true self from that death of a star.
Well, that is very, very, the I never expected you to explain it that way, which is which
What
is
were you
good.
expecting?
Because the perspective I was thinking is, well, the first thing that you said, which was it's rooted in your identity. And I think
Yeah.
for someone whose framework, for me, is built around the starting point is identity, I really resonate with that. And being proud of where you come from, actually looking at where you come from as the source of everything that you are. And we talk about our personalities and the combination of that. And I also actually forgot that gold, you find a lot of gold in Ghana, so which is a nice reminder. But then you talk about this, a lot of times when we talk about transformation, we tend to think of the butterfly and the process they go through. But I like as you were talking about the whole supernova thing, I was visualizing this is how transformation, another way of looking at transformation. But also from the point of view of the things that have challenged you in life or that are trying to make you who you are. But instead of actually some of us think that's the end of me, it's crushing me, and use it as an identity marker to go forward feeling like a victim. Instead, you are saying, actually, it creates stars, it creates planets, it creates possibilities. And the picture I could also see was that of a rocket with the fire underneath taking off into the skies, right?
Ah,
So it's brilliant. But also, there must have been, aside from just generally
yeah.
all the challenges that people face, there must have been a moment in your life when you realized you had to rise up, and what the rising up really look like to create this gold dust that you're now sprinkling around the world with.
Yes, absolutely. And there's we didn't just wake up like this. This didn't
Mm,
just happen overnight. Didn't just happen like yesterday. This takes years and years of transformation. And my breaking point was over 10 years ago now almost 12, 13 years ago and counting. When I found myself I was standing in front of this pawnbroker shop. A pawnbroker shop is where you go and sell your precious belongings because, you don't have any money anymore. And
mm,
two of our companies had gone bankrupt.
mm,
Web development, branding agencies. It was an IT agency that my former husband and I were running. And after a few years, we went spiraling down like never before, losing every single thing bit by bit. And I found myself patient in this pawnbroker shop, and I'm there about to pass over something that was really dear to my heart, something that was supposed to symbolize a union, a sacred union. But that was all that was left, my
mm,
wedding ring, our wedding rings, actually. So in that moment, it felt like I'm selling my soul, selling something that was supposed to be so sacred. And then it felt like that little whisper, Veronica, hello, what on earth is happening? What are you doing here? Like, how did you even get, like, it's like you wake up and like, how did I get here? Have you ever asked yourself that question? It's like, what is this? It was like this rude awakening. And like, how did I get here? And I realized that little voice, Veronica, this is not you. This is not your life. This is not the choices you want to be making. This is not how you want to show up for your kids. Back then, I always say I didn't have any kids then, but I was, of course, planning to have kids in the future. And this is not the kind of mom I wanted to show up as. And what are your parents going to think about you? I can't even tell my parents. My parents hardly even knew of the challenges I was facing in my marriage and in my life because it was just so shameful. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to say? But in that very moment, in that pawnbroker shop, I always say that little voice was my inner warrior that was
mm,
caged in this illusionary bars of limiting beliefs, of expectations, of standards that she had to bow down to and shrink herself into and fit into. And she'd caged herself. So, in that moment, even though it was my darkest moment, it was actually my breakthrough because I made myself a promise that, Veronica, this is not you. And in that week, by some divine intervention, I stumbled upon this book, Conversations with God, by Neil
mm,
Donald Walsh. The irony is, it wasn't anything religious as we know it, but it was certainly something transcending, introspective. It was like a conversation, questions, writing questions that Neil Donald Walsh was asking himself. And I so resonated with these questions. Who am I? What am I doing here? What is left of me? When everything I had identified myself with ceases to exist, what is left of you, Veronica? You're no longer, this business owner. You no longer have this status. You no longer have this label. Your marriage is crumbling soon after lost the label of a wife. Like everything is just crumbling down, and it answered these kind of questions. So I say that was my breakthrough because it embarked me on this journey that I am till today and brought me to where I am today. It was in that dark moment. So the rising meant the dismantling of everything I thought I was so
mm,
that I could be everything that I was meant to be. And that meant understanding that I'm beyond just this body or just this skin or just the label. I am this
mm,
pure, energetic energy in motion. I'm this creative substance created and I get to create because energy is the very substance of all creation. Everything is energy. And I have this within the cells and the atoms of, this body. I have that energy. The neutrons and the protons that vibrate in the nucleus of the atom, like that is what it is. So I get to create, and I realize that I'm part of this greater force of life. We say God, we say, this greater sense of love, and I get to create. So the question that was next for me was, Veronica, what are you going to create? What
mm,
do you get to create now? And
mm,
my energy on that was what created the pathway. So I say, where
mm,
energy goes, creation follows.
mm,
Up till now, my energy was up till then, my energy was focused on lack, on what I didn't want, on what I thought I should be. So of course, I created more of that nonsense in my life. So today, fast forward, the rising up of the Gold Dust Queen was through those fiery explosions so that she could create new pathways, forge new partnerships, forge a new sense of self, right? And it's a continuous journey, even up till
mm,
today. I continue
mm,
to emerge of this inner self. One moment you think you know you got it, you think you get it, you have it all sorted, you think you understand everything, and then the next moment you realize actually you understand nothing, because the
mm.
more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And it's a
Yes.
never infinite journey of self discovery and unraveling of the self, because we've
Mm,
been so conditioned, so programmed, that it's going to take really time to morph into the true self. So when we talk about authenticity, it's even
mm,
what does that mean? Because when you
mm,
think you realize that, actually, me thinking that I'm authentic even is inauthentic. It's so deep. Precious, because we could go on and on, but that's, of
mm.
course, a conversation.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, that defining moment, when we talk of defining moments, sometimes the defining moments will define people in such a way that they go the other way, right? They just say, I'm just going to shrink. So, and that happens a lot to women. It's like, okay, I've been abused. I've gone through divorce. The stigma. I think it's easier for a man to go, yeah, I've gone through divorce, I'll just marry another woman. It's easier. Women carry stigmas in many things that we shouldn't. So it's like that defining moment, you choosing to rise. And this is what we want to kind of encourage people. And you're going through messy transitions or complex transitions in life, it's time to rise. And I think that's what Veronica is sharing with us today. But I like a certain statement that you said, which is energy, where energy goes, creativity flows. And I thought, wow, before now, it's where your focus goes, your energy flows. But where energy then goes, your creativity
Creation
will flow.
follows.
So
Yeah.
that means you'll be putting energy into creating something. So I guess the question, usually with this podcast, we always start with a question. So before we really
Mm.
dive into the three purposeful ways and start to talk about them, the question is, where your energy is going and creating, is it creating what you really want? So you want to start putting your pen to paper right now as we carry on with this podcast. And that question is what you'll be exploring through the conversation that we're having. So where your energy is focusing and flowing at the moment, is that creating the life that you want? Is that making you the leader that you want? Is that making you the woman that you want? Or, like Veronica said, when she took that pause and chose to create Rising Up, she was actually in a space of realization of, actually, my energy is flowing towards scarcity, it's flowing towards a negative identity. So, and Veronica talked about the first word out of those three purposeful ways, the first word, which is authenticity. So we want to talk about those three purposeful ways. And those three ways are authenticity, we've got autonomy, and then we've got authority. And Veronica has already mentioned one a little bit where she talked about authenticity. And, it the transformation that she's mentioned takes courage. It takes continuous courage.
Mm.
It takes continuous thinking. When the negative comes, you put in the positive, bringing light. And talking about this spreading of gold dust. So again, it's a nice visual to think, actually, what am I emitting? Smoke or dust, gold dust? So that's good. So for since you've mentioned it, when you define authenticity for women today, why is it so often the first thing we lose in the pursuit of success? Because, like you said, you now decided to rise up. But again, sometimes you feel like you have to be someone else to actually achieve that success. Definitely you do, but not in the sense of completely change yourself to who you are not. We always say, like, for introverts, you're asked to become more extroverted. So why is it that for women, that's the first thing that maybe you feel like you have to change your dressing, your everything? And so that's the real question is, when we talk of and you define, what's your definition of authenticity? And then why is it that sometimes for women to actually embrace pursuit of success, they feel like that's the first thing that they have to give up?
So the whole idea of giving up authenticity and changing yourself into something that you're not, it would be good to shift that focus to the caterpillar. Would we ask the caterpillar, right, to shift itself to something else, right, knowing that it's going to become a butterfly?
Mm,
You see, the caterpillar, does it even know that it's going to become a butterfly when it's in that state or that stage of its transformation? The caterpillar has to go through those stages. And
mm,
the problem with us is that we may be the caterpillar. And because of all the external forces and influences that surround us, the
mm,
caterpillar forgets that, what it's supposed to be. And then it tries and change into a moth kind of thing or something else that it's not. It can never happen. So what will happen is there'll be frustration because you cannot be anything but a butterfly from a
mm,
caterpillar state, right? If you're trying to be a moth or you're trying to be something else, like the ugly duckling was trying to be a duck when it was just, a swan. The
mm,
story of the ugly duckling. So we have to start with that. What are we losing? What are we giving up? Are we actually giving up? Or that's what it seems like you're giving up your authenticity. Rather than that, it's been buried. So I'd shift the focus from losing it or, to it being covered with layers and layers and layers of programming, external influences, status quo, expectations of what we should or shouldn't be, right? So it's buried. So what happens if you bury a butterfly? You don't give it sunlight, you don't give it food, you don't give it, it loses eventually its essence and it can eventually die, right?
mm,
So if we shift that focus, are we actually losing our authenticity or is it just buried?
mm,
Because if it's buried, then the question arises, okay, how can we unearth whatever is dimming that light? And that means shedding the layers so that the caterpillar can then transform into what? Is it the larva, right? So we have the egg and then the caterpillar and then the larva or the cocoon. It turns into this cocoon. Now, the problem with that stage as you go through this journey of authenticity or becoming who you truly are is that it's dark. And that
mm.
is what many people don't tell us about on this journey of becoming your true self or becoming authentic. It's not glamorous.
No.
No, if you are really on this, you want to be real, you want to be true, you want to be true to yourself, you want to, be authentic. Yeah, all flashy, nice words. But let me tell you something. It's the most unpleasant feeling that you ever experience in your life.
Mm,
It's dark, it's lonely, you question yourself. There is a lot of emptiness, like you're in the cocoon. It feels empty. It feels like you don't belong anywhere. It's like you feel stuck, you feel stagnant on this journey. That's how I felt because the moment I started transforming and started questioning all these things and started actually planting those seeds and the caterpillar transforming into this cocoon,
mm,
I was losing a lot of people around me. People didn't like this. So it felt lonely. It felt I had to say no more often, and people didn't like it. You can't control me anymore, right? You can't manipulate. You can't confuse. So it's dark, it's lonely. And things that used to excite you about success and achievement and, following this path because that's where the money is, that's where the career development is, it doesn't excite you as much anymore because You've shed all the layers of that programming and you're realizing
Mm,
the labels are not my true identity. And the labels are the ones that are actually covering the caterpillar, like I gave the analogy.
mm,
And you realize that if I'm not these labels, then there's nothing to chase.
mm,
And that's a scary feeling because in this world, we're programmed to chase.
mm,
And then when you're not chasing, you're not pursuing something. What am I doing? I'm not, everybody's going, everybody's, succeeding, everybody's, but then here you are just kind of confused, like what's going on? So that journey to uncovering your true self can be quite dark and a bit lonely. And if you don't know that this is the cocoon stage,
mm.
you may break immaturely. You break the shell immaturely and never become that butterfly, or you go back to becoming the caterpillar because that's where it's comfortable. But if you stick with it and start shedding all those layers, start understanding that in the stillness, you don't find clarity, patience. And this was huge for me. I used to think we find clarity. You don't find clarity. In the darkness, in the cocoon, you remember it.
Mm,
It's in the cocoon stage that you start remembering I'm a butterfly.
mm,
You start remembering. So clarity is not to be found. This is I get goosebumps because like that's how we're kind of that's what the norm is about clarity, finding clarity. I used to say to myself, finding clarity. But listen, when I realized like clarity is remembered, like, oh, that is so beautiful. And
mm,
you, it's like, that moment where you go, it's like you remember. You don't find it, you like remembered. It's like
mm.
math. You know what? When you're on those math lessons and the teacher's trying to cram some explanation, you don't get it. You don't get it. Weeks
Yes,
pass, you don't get
I
it.
remember that one.
If you're in Ghana, they'll whip you. Do like, what do you mean? You don't get it. This 5 + 5. What is the? I take one, and what is left? I don't know. And then all of a sudden, it's 10. It's like,
Mm,
I get it. So it's like you remember kind of thing,
mm,
right? And then you emerge as this butterfly, and then you pursue or you create from that space of knowing who you
mm.
truly are. And then everything that is created from that space is aligned, is beautiful, it's ease, it's flow, it's now feels right, right? You know?
Yeah.
You get me, patience? Am I speaking
I- I'm
in
feeling,
tongues or
I'm feeling the energy, and I was just taking notes as I usually do with all my guests. People think
hmm.
sometimes I catch the freeze frame, and they think, "What are you doing? You're looking down." No, I'm taking notes because for
Yeah.
me, I think, like you rightfully said, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And my reason for bringing guests as well is I will also learn from other people's perspective of the world. And when you were talking about the whole, it's a time of struggle and a time of darkness, I remember the story that illuminated this for me. And it's one of my mentors, Joyce Meyer. And she said there's a boy who was walking past a tree and he sees this cocoon stage that you're calling hanging, because what happens is the caterpillar walks or whatever and then goes on the tree and hangs, and it's a very ugly looking kind of thing hanging there. And the temptation is for boys, you know how boys are, you're going, you want to kick something off or whatever, and then the boy watches as this thing begins to move, and and then he thinks, oh, yeah, I can see something picking out, and he thinks, let me help it, and then he helps it. So, well, the thing comes out, but unfortunately cannot fly, because it was in the process of that struggling to come out that the wings would have been developed. So the boy shortened the ability of this butterfly to achieve becoming a full butterfly. So the butterfly, so her thing was like, when you said it's in that place that you remember. So it's in the process of going through that you remember your strength, you remember who you are, you remember the things that have been built into you. And you mentioned something about the ugly duckling. The reason why, and then it hit me. The reason why the duckling was called ugly is
Yeah.
because the ducks, the ducks were the ones calling it ugly. It didn't look like them.
Yeah,
So that's because it's
absolutely.
not a duck, right? So, and
Absolutely.
most
It
of
was
us
never a duck.
want to fit in and be a duck. And that's, like you said,
Mm.
there's so much programming. Is it, you mentioned school, programming comes from school, programming comes from parents, Programming comes from all sorts of programming actually even comes from the genetic code that comes from maybe parents' traumas and all those kind of things. And it's
Yeah.
all about during that process allowing yourself to actually, like the caterpillar, climb up and go in there. Um, the earlier years of my own journey, when an NLP coach said to me, when I said to her, "This person doesn't like me. My manager my managers won't support me. My teammates won't do this and that." And I was kind of saying it all to her, and she looked at me quietly. When I had finished, she said, "Oh, okay. Well, that's great. So what are you going to do about it?" And I was like, "What? I'm powerless. Why should I be the one to do something about it?" And she said, "No, because if you don't do something about it, your life will never change." I thought, "No, I want you to help me to understand how I'm going to fix these people or to make these people who I want, to love me so that I can then accept myself." But then she just said, "Think about it." And as I was walking off, she then said to me, she said, "Patience, stop sabotaging yourself." And immediately it hit me like a light bulb that, I was the one who had this mask on. I was the one who hadn't accepted who I am, and I was then hiding it underneath, so struggling to be liked. And in the process, I wasn't coming off as authentic. And when you're not feeling, looking, behaving like yourself, "Oh, we like coffee. Do you like coffee?" I'll be like, "Oh God, I hate coffee." "But yes, please, I like coffee," just so that you can belong, and then you drink coffee and I go home and I have a headache, all those kind of people pleasing or whatever. So I realized that the mask had to start being peeled off. And I had to actually go to the mirror. And that's what you said when you said clarity in there to see yourself in those dark, scary moments. Because it's scary. It's scary to say, I'm going to be my real self. I'm going to say no to things. I'm going to say yes to what I want. I'm going to. You wake up one day and people think she's not as she used to be. And for you, that is like you freeing yourself. But for them, it's like, that makes us uncomfortable. You need to be
Yeah.
who you are so that we can. And you also look in the mirror and it's scary. But that also, brings me to the second purposeful way. So the first purposeful way is being your authentic self, discovering that authenticity, embracing the struggle. But the second one you've now talked about, we've now moved on to, is owning, which is autonomy. Autonomy is such an interesting concept because some people see it as wanting to go it alone, not let anyone or anything dictate anything to you. But again, in your story, one of the things you said is it's taking ownership and responsibility, and it's saying my thoughts are my own to change. It's me that has to be courageous, and even in my story that I've told. So, basically, my question then is, why is autonomy such a radical act for women, especially those who are balancing their ambitions with cultural or family expectations? Why is this such a radical act that we need to take action? And actually, this year, I actually 2 3 months ago, my word for the month was autonomy, and it was quite challenging because I had to own so many things. So why is it radical? Why would you say it's radical, especially for women wanting to chase and balance ambition versus expectations?
So when you talk about autonomy, right, the freedom, right,
Mm,
to be,
mm,
the freedom to do, the freedom to have. Okay, so when you look at it, autonomy. So I'm free to be, I'm free to do, I'm free to have. Now, when we talk about freedom from that perspective or autonomy, you realize that it's a big word and people use
mm,
it frivolously.
mm,
Like you said, autonomy is not given to you as such, right? It's what you already are. When you have this mindset, I have to achieve something, or I have to gain something, or I have to get my autonomy back. I have to prove that I'm this, and I have to reclaim my autonomy. You're indirectly saying I'm not autonomous. I don't have freedom. I'm not free to. I'm chained, and maybe you are. Maybe there were times in this world where we were physically chained, right? But in today's world, when we talk about this mental slavery, we are still chained, thinking that we are not. So we have
mm,
to fight for that, or we have to, say that we need to reclaim it. My message, I always like to look at things from different perspectives and just shed some light on in corners which we may not have looked.
mm,
So if you are asking me, okay, how do we reclaim, or why are we so radical about this autonomy thing? It's because deep down inside, you haven't realized that you already are. And that
mm,
links to authenticity. Being you, or being the real you, you're always you. There's nothing that can take it away. It's either you giving that power away, you taking that responsibility, and you
mm,
allowing and tolerating what you never should have, and so on. But you are always you.
mm,
Authenticity is when you are not led by achievement. Listen to this. You are led by alignment. Authenticity is not fueled by, achieving this and achieving that, and so that I can be. It's fueled by alignment, because you now create and take inspired action from a space of alignment. So when this leads into autonomy, then you say, so now that I'm free to be, you realize that autonomy is something that you always had. What are we
mm,
chasing? Who are we proving to? And then the programming comes in, because we've always been programmed to think that we need to prove ourselves. Because, hey, as children, we need to get those A's. At school, we need to
mm,
achieve and prove that we are worth going to and being taken to the next year, or passing the exam to be taken to the next year. When I was 8 years old back in Ghana, I don't know how the system is, I was in year 4. And I repeated the year because I didn't pass my exams. And all my friends went to year 5, and I was left behind. So here I am thinking that, I have to prove myself to be better and that I'm not good enough. So there's something I always have to prove. Listen, if you have to prove anything, you're indirectly telling yourself that you're not
mm,
that which you have to prove. So autonomy for me is very simple. You already have it. So this radical pursuit, because of our cultural experiences, is part of the layers that is buried the caterpillar, that is meant to be a
mm,
butterfly, that can never really create the environment where it can truly go through that process of becoming
mm,
what it always was, a butterfly. A caterpillar was always a butterfly. It's always meant, it's nothing else, So autonomy really is, you've always had it. You always have been free in your mind, in the thoughts that you think, right? In the images that you produce in your mind, in the actions you choose to take or
mm,
not. So
mm,
this whole radical pursuit of autonomy, it's a sign that you believe you are not, which is again
mm,
inauthentic, because you always are, you always were. It's all
mm,
linked. Can you see?
mm,
So what are we proving this autonomy when we always are? I get it in the workplace, the corporate. The autonomy to lead and to be free to rise up the career ladder and have this and have that. This is all the illusion that has created this perception of not
mm.
having the autonomy. But when in your case you realize that I actually can choose,
Yes.
I actually can. And the reason I have it is because of either my fear. So we
Mm,
hold on to the things that actually bring us pain, because, hey, it's quite comfortable. It's quite safe. I know this pain. I can manage
mm,
it. Like the
mm,
dog in the porch, sitting and lying down, moaning and groaning. And the grandson asks his granddad, Granddad, why is this dog moaning and groaning? And the granddad says, well, because it's sitting on a nail. Like, well, why doesn't it just stand up? Well, because it's not painful enough for it to stand. It's just, it's just right. It's comfortable in that pain. The pain is not strong enough. So
mm,
until we realize that what is actually making us feel this cage, this lack of autonomy,
mm,
this we can't be this because we are women, we cannot be like that, or we are suppressed and we are oppressed by all this,
mm,
so we can't. That is all a program. Who said? Who told you? Who told
mm,
you? You already are. You always were. Now it's just to be that, and not to continue to fight. Just be that. I know it's easier
mm,
said than done, because listen, it's not easy. It takes courage. It takes going against the status quo. It means being in the darkness for a bit. It means, but
Hmm.
the middle is very messy and scary, but the ending is truly beautiful. So it's worth going through that shedding, that fire, to
Hmm.
burn out all that you are not. So you're left with all that you are and rise up as that goldest queen or king that you are.
Hmm. I like the way that you linked the word autonomy with the word freedom. And that was when I said my keyword was autonomy. That was what I was thinking of. And the question was, um, where have I given up my freedom that I need to take it back? Because nobody's taking it away from me. It's not right now. It's me giving it away. And that was the like own that thing. Own the fact that you've given it away. Own the fact that you're sitting on that nail and you're choosing to sit on the nail, those kind of things. So it was all about going round and saying, where have I given up the freedom to be, to do, and to have? And again, if we're going to put it even in the corporate space, I remember when I was in the corporate space and I had applied several times to get to a position, and that wasn't happening. And I began to question myself. I even went for an interview, and the feedback I got was so silly. And the person said, "Oh, when you were
Mm-hmm.
talking, you didn't express passion for the role." Initially, it felt
Mm-hmm.
silly, and it felt like, oh, I did. I answered the questions with a lot of energy and things. And when I came back and I was talking to God, and I said, God, I've done all this work, so I am more than this. So why is this not happening? And that's when I heard, those that are not familiar with the Holy Spirit, that's when I heard, yes, exactly, you are more than this. I'm glad you said that, because um, why are you shooting below the level that you need to go for? You have been praying to me to say yes to opportunities that you have outgrown. And I said, "Hmm, okay."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if I'm not answering, is because do you want me to answer that prayer, or do you want me to answer the real prayer you should have prayed? And then I said, actually, I'm so afraid. I feel like despite all these things that I've done, that position that I'm looking for might not be possible. Hence why I'm just deciding to settle. And then it became, it's up to you to pray the prayer that is really in your heart to pray, right? So I said, okay. So I now went back. What I did was not just pray, I took action.
Of
Basically,
course.
all the the recruitment people, don't call me for these jobs anymore. And one person even called me and then said, well, you see, the exact things I was saying to myself, he said it back to me, and it's always nice to hear. He said, well, you see, when I look at your CV, this is the only places I think that you will be able to do this and that. Hence why I'm just advising you to just accept this now.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good offer and everything. So I said, so I listened quietly, and when he finished, I said, don't ever, ever call me again. You are the voice of my backwardness, and I'm entangled in not saying that I'm free to be, to do, to have more. And after I said that, I just let it go, and I said, patient, take a break, be free, and let's see what happens. And guess what? The day after, or not long after, someone calls me.
Yeah.
He said, there's this opportunity, and I think that you're great for it.
Yeah.
Initially, when they told me the opportunity, I was like, how on earth am I great for this? Because I'm thinking, I don't think I am. But the guy now said,
Mm.
let's give it a go. Do you want me to put you forward? And the enthusiasm with which I said yes, even though I had all this thing, was like, after I said yes, I was like, oh, well, it's not going to happen. And the next thing he calls me,
Mm.
he says, it's happened. Then I now go, time on the day of the interview, I'm sitting at the train station ready to go. I call him and I say,
Mhm.
I made a mistake. I don't think I could go for this interview. I don't know what I'm going to say. And I looked at some of the research, and I have this question about the company, blah, blah, blah. And he said, that research and that question you asked me is the reason why you are the right person for the job. Remember that I'm representing them, and I'm not making a fool of myself. If you don't qualify, I wouldn't put you there. He said, Patience,
Mhm.
here is an advice I want to give you, because I am the director of this recruitment company. So what I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
to you is, and we're very reputable, what I'm saying to you is when you go there, don't treat this opportunity as if they are interviewing you. Treat it as you are interviewing them. Do they fit your ambition?
Yeah.
Can they
Yeah.
handle? And this is somebody, like you were saying, if you, where your energy focuses, you create it. Now, when I
Mm-hmm.
shifted the dimension of my energy, it created a different person with a different voice. He actually
Yeah.
celebrated me. He said, I've spoken to you, I've spoken to the company. They need you. So when you go there, you get them to be interviewed as to whether they qualify to get your help to do the work. And I was like, wow, it was a totally different dimension. And
Yeah.
exactly, I went with that energy, jumped in the train as if I was, like, uh, jumped in the train, went for the energy, went for the interview with that energy. And when I came out of it, I knew instantly that things were going to be okay. And from
Mm-hmm.
then on, me moving from a space of this is all you can be to
Mm-hmm.
actually now when I was told this is the job, I now said to them, can I have more money when they offered me the It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Yeah.
when I said to my husband, this is what I did, my husband said, are you crazy? They're offering you double what you were paid and you said you want more. So I was like, yes, I think what I have done in the past is always shoot below the belt, below who
Mm-hmm.
I am. Now, as I share this story with you, and immediately when I told the agent, again, when you meet the right people, when you meet, this guy said, we can only try. Rather than say, I don't think they would think about it, he said, we can only try. The worst they
Are
can
you
say is
trying?
no. And then he
Yeah.
comes back 30 minutes later and say, guess what? They didn't even flinch. They just said yes. And my husband said, "I get-" So basically, we're talking about transformation here. But
Yeah.
what we're also saying is own your strength, own who you
Mm-hmm.
are, but also be willing to go through those dark periods. The point at that point for me, autonomy was owning the no's that I was going to say to people and say, I'm going to believe that I am better than this. So
Yep.
all those decisions, I'm going to believe that it's time to stand up from that nail rather than keep going
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on that nail. It's not
Yeah.
going, it's going to be painful standing up. Yes, I'll feel the pain. Ouch. I'll know there's a wound there. Yes, ouch.
Yeah.
I'll be waiting in limbo, not knowing where the next person will come. But spiritually, I only had a day difference between the decision I made for a no and my yes that was on its way. A
Yeah.
day, a day.
Yes.
So even
And you
myself,
always had that.
this
Yeah.
story, I'm reminding myself I have to do this again.
Ah, that's it. True empowerment
So
and true transformation live.
I know I have to do this again. And that really brings me to the next question, which is the third purposeful way, which is stepping into your authority. What does that look like? Sometimes authority masquerades, and for me personally, and I'm going to personalize it again because I've personalized a bit of the story.
Yeah.
When I think of authority, sometimes I think, oh, I don't want to look egotistical. And we know it, you talked about feminine power. I don't want to look egotistical. I don't want to look like I'm disrespecting people and putting people down. So, and then you kind of dim your light or you shrink. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is the definition of authority, and how can
Okay.
women not equate it with ego, but just how can they really find their voice, own their space? What
Okay.
would you say advice to give in that regard?
So first and foremost, the feminine power. I'm not a feminist. I'm not a feminist. The activist kind of way that
Yes, yes,
because it's
yes.
been kind of blacklisted. This whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
When I talk about authenticity, it's about just being in your element, and if that's in the
Mm,
feminine, that's what it is, right?
mm,
So when we link authenticity and autonomy into authority, you have to realize what actually is happening here. What is authority?
mm,
For me, it is a state of being. It's an energy.
mm,
Yes, that's what it is for me. Authority. It's an energy. It's a way of being. It's a state you're in. And that state, that quality of energy is a presence.
Mm.
A presence you carry. And we know that what energy is, right? Energy is creative. So when your energy is in this authoritative kind of state of being, what happens is energy is infectious, it
Mm.
influences. So those around you will feel that presence, that grounding, that clarity, that firmness in knowing who you are, what you do, how you do it, and why. Those
Mm.
four elements. Once you
Mm.
have clarity on that, you are vibrating on a frequency. When I say frequency, because energy is a frequency. When we talk, we are energetic beings, whether we like it or not. Our thoughts emit electronic impulses, which has a frequency on its own, like a hertz. When you're on the radio and you're like finding its frequency, it literally is. It is just what it is. So authority, I always like to, again, give a refreshing perspective, right, from the usual perception that we have, is your energy and
Mm.
how you show up in the world. And the only way you can have that grounding energy is when you know who you are, as not only as a professional, not only with the labels, because after all, we live in this 3D world, and yes, the labels have a purpose in identifying things, okay, but also knowing who you are without them, meaning your
Mm.
values, what you represent, what you stand for. Through the refinement of the fire, you will know that, and because you've shed everything that isn't you, and you're left with all that is you. So the real authority, I'm not talking about the fake one where you're pretending because you have power, I'm the boss, or you're fired. Why are you doing this? Doing this, and you're just giving instructions left, right, and center because you have an inflated ego, which is protecting the softness
Mm.
or protecting the real self, because that's what all an ego is. That is authority. So authority is not just in the superficial understanding of what it is, because we all know that definition. But for me, the real authority is when you have presence, and
Mm.
presence is an energy. And the only way you can have that quality of energy where it starts to influence those around you, because energy is infectious, in a positive way, you uplift others, you inspire others, right? Your passion sparks somebody else's light, right?
Mm.
You become a lighthouse where in the dark the ship can harbor, right? Because
Mm.
you have that, you emit that essence, you emit that light that in the darkness others can see for themselves and find their own light or their own way in that space. So that for me is authority. Like I'm not the usual I'm not the usual guest who will tell you authority is when you have this and you can do this. Nah, I'm more deeper than that. Beyond
Yeah.
all the labels, beyond all the surface stuff, that is true
Mm.
authority. So you have to reflect upon yourself and ask yourself, do you have the authority? And when I
Mm.
ask, do you have the authority, it means, do you have the energetic presence? Are you on that energy level where you can stand your ground because you have already found, not only found, sorry, you have remembered, you see, even I have to
Mm.
also remind myself, you have remembered, yeah, because we've been programmed to think, this finding thing when it's already
Yeah.
there, right?
You keep
I
searching. Yeah.
absolutely. I have a video I'm going to post in maybe in a few days' time about actually clarity. Water is clear
Mm.
in its natural state.
Mm.
Water flows in its
Mm.
natural state. It's when you add dye or when you add something foreign that or sand, it
They
gets
agree.
murky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So authority is when you're in your natural state.
And you're clear. And it's clear.
Exactly. And that requires you knowing the answers to these questions. Who am
Mm.
I? Right? What am I? What am I doing in this world? Right? What is, professionally, of course, if you have a business, what are you doing? What are you representing? What difference are you
Mm.
making? What problems are you solving? What solutions do
Mm.
you have that you are convinced and credible for? How do you go about solving problems in the world, either in your profession, in your career, in your business, and why? Why is that important? What is
Why?
your personal story that has brought you to where you are? And when you have all those answers, that's when you can stand in authority saying, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is how I do it, and this is why. And
Mm.
that energy, like everybody is there watching you and how you speak, they feel that energy. So that
Mm.
is when that energy they feel touches them. It tills the soil within them. It gets them to reflect. It gets them to change. And then they come to see, wow, you've changed
Mm.
my life. Wow, you made me think about something. That is for me authority. So in the more deeper
Yes.
sense.
A refreshing take on authority, because there's some keywords there, which also, when we're having all these conversations, I know some people would say it's so self-absorbed to be talking about authenticity, authority, autonomy. But what I like and what is refreshing from what you said, because I'm a people person, I love to connect with people. And so when I'm talking of things, I'm not talking just about being self-absorbed, So
Mm,
when you talk about uplifting, authority is your presence, your essence is uplifting people, it's inspiring people, and your passion is sparking something in somebody else. That's more like, yeah, that is, you are grounded. And the only way you can do all those things is when you're actually grounded. You know your why, you know your what, you know your who, your how, all those things, you know them with certainty, even if you are still in the process of learning or
yeah,
evolving.
yeah.
You know your why, and you're linked and aligned to your values. Operating in that kind of space and energy creates a presence, because you're not trying to be who you are not. You're actually trying, you are exposing everything and saying, I own who I am, and I'm not trying to be different. So, and it's useful for introverted women to hear this. Why? Because always thinking that person that looks more extroverted than me has everything that I don't have, and it's coming from that space that you'll be going into the world. And the other word you use is kind of like firmness. So I like the idea of the presence, the essence, all those things. When you put the pre, you split it, then the essence comes in. So pre-essence, presence,
Ah,
So before
yes,
you can exhibit your essence, you have to know who you are. What comes before the essence? So presence, and you bring that out, you bring that in. I've done a lot of talks around presence, personal branding, and everything, and my flavor is always different, and people see it differently. And we talked about branding the other day and said maybe branding is not always the greatest word to use because of its origins and so on, but that's a different topic for
yeah,
another day. Otherwise,
it
we
is.
will be here today. But I really like all these things you shared. And that brings me to kind of like, now you have to summarize all this for us in all the great nuggets you shared, in providing us with some three truths that every woman who perhaps has forgotten her worth, or has lost her voice, has lost her identity, because your book is centered around taking all these things and
Mm,
those truths that you need to own so that you can rise up. So what are some three truths that that woman who has forgotten her worth, who has felt humiliated by her mistakes and things that she's done in life and is living like a victim, what are the three truths that she can stand on
yeah,
today to kind of change that? That
yeah.
might be in the summary of so many things you've said today.
Absolutely. And the summary is always in the book because this is really everything that I've talked about here.
Mm,
And I'll take the opportunity to use those three nuggets from the book, the 50
mm,
golden nuggets, because they're literally 50 golden nuggets if you see
mm.
the
Yeah,
content here. So
yeah.
the first one, I'll share the first golden nugget is if you're feeling that you're lost in this world and you've lost who you are and all that, these are just illusions. One
Mm,
thing I want to say is break into the world within.
mm,
Every one of us is trying to break into the world outside, right?
mm,
But like the eagle, yeah, breaks into the world outside. It breaks through the shell, okay, into the vastness of the skies, and it soars through the skies, right? That's the eagle. I want us to see ourselves as pecking through the shell, but the shell within.
mm,
And if you feel lost in all this outside world, it's because you haven't really connected with the world within you. So peck within the layers of limitations of what you've been told you are, of all the expectations, and peck through those shells or through those layers to get into the core of what you are.
Mm.
clear like water, love, compassion, right? Authority, you already have that.
Mm.
Realness, self, that's already there. It's all there. So break into the world within. That's the
Mm.
first nugget. And the second nugget is what I shared from my story. You are not your labels. Remember that. Imagine having sticky notes all over your face, right? With all these labels. Of course, it
Mm.
covers who you really are. So get rid of all the labels. As in, when I say get rid, I don't mean literally, because after all, we are in this 3D world. They have a purpose,
Mm.
right? I'm known as a coach, and yes, but know that these are just labels and they do not identify who you are. So if, for example, you've lost your career,
Mm.
job, you've lost a job right now and you're falling into this confusion and depression because you've identified yourself with this position, know that you are beyond this position. You're not that label, and realize that you are beyond that. So that will uplift you and enable you to see beyond just that label and what else is possible for you. And then you can take more inspired action towards the right direction.
Mm.
So
Mm.
I lost my marriage, for example. I was devastated because I held that label so highly. All
Mm.
right, a wife. I didn't come from a broken home. My mom and my dad were together till the very end. I didn't know this concept of
Mm.
divorce was even a possibility in my life. God forbid. But it happened, and it was, yes. For 7 years I tried to fix things. It wasn't something that I took lightly. Yet you cannot change people, and people will
Mm.
always show you their true colors. So I lost that label, but one of the reasons why I was able to uplift myself from that, it was because I realized that I'm not that label of
Mm.
just the wife. And that is just a label that we carry. Okay, it has a certain purpose, but and beyond that. So if you've lost something, know that you are not just those labels, you're beyond that. And I talk about that in that, because it's here,
Mm. Mm.
the label. There's more to it. And the last one here is the power of I. We keep on saying, I don't have, I can't, I'm not, I will never. I is a powerful word. And if you feel, I feel betrayed, I feel disrespected, I'm a rejection and all those things because of the experiences you've had, you are sabotaging yourself. It's like the
Mm.
caterpillar saying, I am a moth. Oh, I will never be a butterfly. Can you imagine?
Mm.
A caterpillar saying, I will never be a butterfly. It was always meant to be a butterfly. How dare you say that?
Yeah.
So remember the power of I. Whenever you say I am not, or I, catch yourself. Is it the caterpillar? And imagine the caterpillar saying, I'm not a butterfly. I can never be a butterfly. How dare we? We can see it from a third person perspective. It's like, that's crazy. How come? But when you're in it and you talk about yourself negatively, um, you create energy that is
Mm.
destructive.
Mm.
So use that I to create something which is constructive. We always have a
Wow.
choice. And
These are
that would be it for
powerful,
me. And
powerful,
there are
powerful.
50. There are
True.
50 golden nuggets, all that, of all these kind
So
of things that I'm
what I
sharing with you.
always say is, if you start with three, your life will be so transformed. And before
Absolutely.
you even know it, the rest of the 50 can be coming out of those three. So that's why I always say to people, one, two, three, if you count one, two, three, go, you are already going. And if you can
Yes.
count the one, two, three, you're going in momentum. And when you talked about the very first one, hit me like, pff, and it just brought some, uh, something flashed in my mind because, as I always say on this podcast, I'm a person of faith. And through my teenage years, I was reading the Bible, but I was always asking why. What does this mean? And I always was conscious and cautious about being brainwashed. So if somebody said something, I'll quickly go and check. What do I understand about what they are saying? Because I don't
Yeah,
want
yeah,
you to
yeah.
brainwash me,
Mhm.
and things. And there is, when you said feeling lost is an illusion, break into the world within, it took me back to the time when Jesus was standing with his disciples and saying to them, you guys say, where is heaven? Look for heaven here, look for heaven there, but heaven is within you. Heaven is amongst you. Heaven has arrived amongst you. Don't look at it everywhere else. Now look, look within, because when I'm no longer here, myself, the Holy Spirit, God, they are within you. Look there, heaven is in there. And when you said that, it's like breaking into the world within. How much of the world outwards have we looked? Have
Yeah.
we asked you go back and ask your parents the career you're doing, maybe your parents asked you to do it, the expectations you had. So that first nugget, really, feeling lost is an illusion. You're not lost because you've not looked in the right place, to find. And you're saying about labels. Again, labels that we give ourselves. I've always said that introversion, it can be part of your core. And maybe someone says you're an introvert. Doesn't always mean that you will show up as an introvert. You have the autonomy, the power to express the other side of yourself, because we are on a spectrum. So it's not just one thing. You can be extroverted when you want to be. I always say I'm a chameleon.
Yeah.
If
Right.
I'm green, but if I get to a place and purple is my way of blending in, I change to purple. Just to be, so
Absolutely.
it's important to recognize that our labels don't actually put a full stop. They are just part of the journey of our lives. And then the power of I am, or I am. And even again, it takes me back to the spiritual principle when Moses said, "Who shall I say sent me?" And he
Hmm.
just say, "I am. I am sent you. I am sent you." And basically, what he was saying was like referencing, I have said, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. I am all these things and the things I have done. He wasn't trying to say there are things there that you might not like that I'm apologizing for. Just when you get there, tell them I am sent you. So all the things that those people have told them about me, I am that. So, and it just
Hmm.
kind of illuminating that we also have to, once we get into that, removing the illusion of the lie, telling ourselves the labels, it all flows so nicely. So thank you so much,
Yeah.
Veronica. There is so much to take away from here, in terms of what people need to remember. And I think for me, just to reiterate for everybody else, feeling lost is an illusion. Break into the world within. You are not your labels. So you're not your experiences. There is more to you than labels and the power of I. But then again, if you fancy more nuggets, Veronica's book has
Ah.
50. 50. So you'll never be short of what to go and read.
And there are
Um,
activities inside as well to do
exactly.
reflection
So
prompts
you
to
can
help you, yeah,
self-coach
introspect.
yourself. And the question we posed before is, what are you giving your energy to? And what is that energy creating? What is it creating? So have you taken the time to reflect on that question that we asked you? And has this episode really helped you to really work on it? So as usual with these podcasts, we always end with a quote. And strangely enough, my guests don't always know what the quote is going to be. But then it's always alignment, and we've used the word alignment, and my framework is known as the aligned introvert method, and there's a reason for
Mm.
it. Every time I walk around and I interview guests, I'm always seeking alignment. And so, uh, guess what? The quote today says, "When a woman rises with purpose and gives herself permission to fail forward or do what it takes, she becomes the permission others have been waiting for." And when Veronica talked about authority, she said being the lighthouse, your passion sparks. So again, when a woman rises with purpose and gives herself permission to fail forward or do what it takes, she becomes the permission others have been waiting for. So let that sink in. Is somebody around you actually waiting for you to rise up and be the gold dust queen? Is somebody around you waiting? So I encourage you to get hold of Veronica's book, because we'll place a link there. And so thank you again, Veronica, for sharing your wisdom, your insights, your expertise with us. If we want to get hold of you aside from just the book, which is your preferred mode of people getting hold of you or connecting with you?
Sure, so the book, of course, is on Amazon. It's enough to write Rise Up Gold as Queen, but also on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is my virtual office. Veronica Safua Owusu, and do connect, share
Yeah.
with me your story. Let's engage, let's interact, and yeah, looking forward to connecting.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for enriching our time today. And it's just left for me to say, if you have not subscribed to this podcast yet, what are you really waiting for? You have missed so many episodes. Get back in there, and there are so many fantastic guests and more to come. You want to be alerted and reminded to check in and listen on Spotify, or if you like on YouTube. You'll find details of how you can subscribe, but also share it with others so that you are also shining your light. You are building your authority by sharing something that is causing you to grow, making a difference in your life. So thank you very much for listening. Just remember that until next time, continue to rise and develop yourself and build your quiet confidence. Take care and God bless. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Quietly Confident Introverts. If you found today's discussion valuable, please subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast with others. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower introverted women leaders. Remember, you can also connect with me, Patience Ogunbona, at The Visionary Introverted Woman, where we are dedicated to helping you discover your inner strength and lead with purpose. Stay true to your vision. Embrace your introverted superpowers, and let's make a lasting impact together. Until next time, stay confidently introverted.